Well, it was something that, I'm in the business of entertaining. And, of course, as I said earlier, I couldn't do the first 6 WrestleManias because I was with Hasbro and G.I. Joe. And I was kind of set back that I wasn't with the WWE, kind of hurt feelings, and I didn't really watch much of the shows. And I really didn't have much time anyway, but I did watch WrestleMania 6 from Toronto. Hogan and Warrior were the top bill for the main event. And I watched it. And the next day I sent Vince McMahon a handwritten note to his home saying that I'd watched the pay-per-view, and it wasn't so much the match that I thought was so good, but his production. I thought his production could not be topped by anybody that I'd ever seen, And about 2 weeks later, I got a call. I was watching a NASCAR race on a Sunday afternoon, and answered the phone, and it was Vince, and he said, Sarge, and I said, yes. He said, Vince, and there's only one Vince, and he said, see if you're done with G.I. Joe, and I said, yeah. It's funny you should know that, and he said, well, I've got an idea for you. I don't know if you'd come over to my house, and I'll go through it with you. So, of course, I thought he was going to take G.I. Joe, the real American hero, Sergeant Slaughter, and make him the real American hero with all of his, ways of doing it. And but he had other ideas. So when I went to his home, he laid up this huge piece of cardboard that was all painted up, and it had LA Coliseum, and would hold 104,000 fans. And he said, I want to fill this up at WrestleMania 7, and I want you to help me do it. And I said, okay, great. He said, well, listen to me and see what you think. So he started laying on this, idea, coming back as a Rocky sympathizer, and eventually working our way to Hogan and I to be, the main event. So I, of course, being the opposite of what you are is always fun to play as a character, and I was all gung ho. I wanted to do it immediately, but he said, go home and talk to your family about it. It could be pretty rough out there, So I went and talked to my wife and my daughters, who really didn't know much about it. And, my wife just said, you're crazy to do something like that. It's impossible, for G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter to do that. So I said, well, let's give it a try. So we started on our way, and of course it did get pretty rough out there. The death threats and the bomb threats. And when I first started out, they brought me back nice and slow and let people digest it, knowing that just came off of G.I. Joe, and he's anti-American, and he's going for Iraq, and what was going on. You had to take your time doing it, and didn't want to lose him. And so we worked hard at it, and Randy Macho Man Savage and the Ultimate Warrior were in a kind of a battle, a rivalry, and Macho Man broke his hand. And Vince came to me and said, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to put you with the Warrior and have Sherri be your manager and get through till Randy heals. So, okay. So Hogan kind of disappeared, and we went on with the Warrior and did all these matches. And at that time, Randy and Warrior were into almost into the cage match part of their storyline. So I had to get into shape pretty quick with the Warrior. But we battled and we battled and we battled, and finally in Miami took the title from him, and started on our way to Hogan and the LA Coliseum and the 104,000 fans, and it just that night after I took the title from Warrior, it really, the gas was really poured on the fire, and there was no looking back at that point, and it really started, getting rough out there. I had gotten to Philadelphia, and one of the road agents asked me if I spoke to Vince or my wife, and I said, no, is there a problem? So why don't you call him? So I called home, and there was no answer, and then I called Vince, and he told me that someone had called up and threatened to kill me and my family and him and his family, and blow up our homes and blow up the wrestling office and blow up the studio and do all kinds of dastardly deeds. So he took it upon himself to call my wife and get her out of the house until he could secure premises and everything. So I finally got a hold of my wife, and she was kind of like laughing about it and told me, I told you this wasn't a good idea. And of course I lived in Connecticut, and I lived on a 4-acre piece of land that was very, very difficult to find, much less get to. And Vince had promised me that there'd be security there by that night. And so when I got back a few days later, I went up to my driveway, and there was a Winnebago. How it got up there, I have no idea. The Winnebago in my driveway, and there were 4 gentlemen with suits, and came by and introduced themselves and showed me that they were armed and they were packing, and they would watch the perimeter of my property 24/7. And they were going to take my children to school and take my wife to the shopping center and all types of things. And of course, my wife wasn't too happy about that, so she didn't allow any of the things to go on at school, or we just kind of bit the bullet, more or less. And we got through it, and it just was one of those things where you can't look back and say, I should have did this, should have did that. Vince told me to do whatever because of my creative nature and ability to just go and do whatever I could do. And if I got too far over the line, he would pull the reins back. And that's kind of what we did a few times. There were times, there was Saddam Hussein's birthday. We took a cake out to the ring and asked everybody to sing happy birthday to Saddam. To have people stand up in the audience and give 10 seconds of silence to all the brave Iraqi soldiers who died in the overtake at Kuwait, and all types of crazy things. They wanted me to burn the American flag, but I refused to do that. So I suggested that we take Hulk Hogan's shirt, put it on a flagpole, or more or less a stick, and say that represents Americana, and burn it. And I think that got more repercussions than, well, I don't think it got more, but it was as hardcore as you could go, other than doing the way. And so we just look back at it and think of, Gene Okerlund refused to interview me a few times because he was afraid, because we were doing live shows. And Brother Love would interview me. People look back and watch all the interviews that I did with Brother Love. But I could talk to you for weeks about what we did, but and how we handled it. And General Adnan, of course, was from Iraq. Grew up there, went to college with Saddam Hussein, and knew how to speak the language. And his family was all killed over there, and it was a rough time for everybody.